Hey guys, I'm Tiffany Harlick with Hacienda Harlick and the Beekeepers Almanac, and I'm so excited because my friend Ben is here with Respite Bee Farm. And so I'm really thankful for your time, Ben. Would you mind just giving folks a little introduction about you, your family, and the bee farm?
Yes, no, we are so grateful too to be able to have a chance to do this. This is a hope and a dream to kind of grow more within the beekeeping community and those around. And because again, our hopes are and dreams are kind of probably similar as a lot of y'all as beekeepers is one, spread awareness of bees, their importance, but get people enjoying them also. And if they really don't want to get close to them, we get it, but maybe they can be a part of planting things that are good for them too. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
in Rogers, Texas, so Bell County area of Central Texas. Small bee farm that we hope to grow just mainly because we wanted to do something as a family centered for our boys that we have growing up, and who knows, maybe girls if they come along down the way, if the Lord gives us some. And yeah, I work at a hospital full time, and so I can't take my family, to work with me there. But we wanted to do a trade that we could join in together as a family that I can get my boys out working with when they get older and help mom a little bit by me taking them for a bit. And I've always done beekeeping, and really it turned into a hobby that was taking up so much time. My wife said, "You either make it something or we slow down," because I was just every day and night doing bees. So we decided to make it a little business and try and get the family thing going.
That's awesome. How old are your boys right now?
I've got 3 and 1.5.
Okay, so they're not beekeeping just yet. Just
My 3-year-old came with me to check 10 bees at an ag lot this morning. So
Oh
he
yeah?
he was taking lids off, and too quickly I do canvas inner cover, and he just pull the canvas off and stick his head right on the top, just looking at them. And he did good. He went through all 10, eager, got stung on the arm once at the end, and he was shocked, but really just kind of caught him off guard. And then for the rest of the time he's like, "Dad, I just want to watch from the car." So he sat in the car and just was on the windshield like this the whole time.
That's awesome. Had he been stung before, or was that his initiation sting?
No, his initiation was pretty hardcore. When he was 2 years old, he was an escapee. Like he was unaware of fear, but he would like run off in the field and at nighttime, and we'd like have flashlights. And if it wasn't for his cotton top head, like we would have a hard time seeing him. But once we have some chicken coops that are way out on our property, and then our bees are a little bit past that, and he was going out that direction, and Liz, my wife, said, "Hey, don't go to the bees or anything." He's like, "No, I won't." And next thing I know, like he's running screaming back, and he went all the way to the bee. This is when he was 2, and he'd only been into mate. I don't even think he's been into it. He's just watched me from a car in a
Mhm.
diaper through the car window. But he went out to the bees, took a lid off, and looked at them with nothing on. And
Oh my
he
God.
ended up with about 8 to 10 stings, face and body, and
Oh,
swollen up like crazy. But within 20 minutes, smiling, laughing. And the next day, I put him in a suit, and he ran out there to go do it again.
go do it again.
There, like, I was like, he's a keeper.
He's a keeper, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind that this child is going to grow up in his dad's footsteps. That's awesome. My kids are almost 20 and 22, and so my daughter was here visiting, and I was like, you might not want to inherit a beekeeping business, but I've got it ready for you in case. So that's great to start them young and to just expose them to the agriculture system, the agricultural communities, our foodways, our food systems. Tell us, I want to know a little bit about what kind of equipment you're running, what kind of landscape you're in. Guys, Ben is growing. He's keeping bees in zone 8B and 9A in the Bell County area. And so I just want to know about your equipment, your forage, kind of what a normal spring and
Sure.
fall looks like.
Yeah. So I would say around here we were really blessed and lucky. So we have an acreage that's surrounded by 400 plus acres of regenerative agriculture, family that they are doing that in rotational grazing sheep.
Yeah.
And they have been spending all of their time the past more than a decade to restore all of that land to Texas native prairie. Like they've
Mhm.
done seed planting and everything, and they've done the rotational. So like it is just amazing to see the forage and stuff that is growing around here. And then So yeah, the springtime comes on and it's just an array of the different flowers. Of course, blue bonnets and Indian blankets or Indian paintbrush, and then the blankets, and then Glardia, horsemint. Right now, it literally looks like snow on the prairie because it is just solid white.
Oh, is it?
Right now it's September 1st, and just the whole back area of ours is just solid with snow on the prairie. But yeah, and so equipment wise, I've been doing beekeeping 12 years or so, but like, as we've grown and gotten bigger, like I'm really trying to streamline and figuring out, like I'm not just buying deals of random stuff off marketplace anymore. It's like I've got to have one thing in mind, and one thing I'm doing is I'm actually rotating to all deeps and 8 frame boxes, just
Mhm.
we live off of, and like we started all this for removal purposes. We love to do removals, we love to educate the community about the best way to do that. And so with that, I cut the comb and band it in a frame, and that's typically always in a deep frame. And I like to rotate comb. I like to be able to shift boxes around. And I was having so many boxes be, a deep, a medium, and this, just because I was using whatever I could get that was cheap.
Yeah.
And I paid the price for it in the past couple of years of just like, darn, there's a medium in the brood chamber now. And then there's a top, and now that's a 10 frame, and this is an 8. And so yeah, I'm switching to everything is an 8 frame and a deep. That way I can always interchange. And I do have half a dozen long langs that I built as a trial experiment before, when I was doing like pure natural, no treatments, and trying to get in that. And I really like those, especially for educational purposes, like
Mm-hmm.
internships. And man, to be able to pop a lid off, and especially with the cloth inner cover, like just pull up little sections and talk about it, and pull a frame out and cover back up easy. Like it's a great educational type of hive. And so, but you don't really want to move those around a ton because they weigh a lot. So I keep those
Right.
on property. Yeah.
I love it. I have a couple different styles as well, and I wouldn't recommend people get started with a couple of different types. But if you can work with a beekeeper, and do you guys do farm tours?
We haven't yet. We've thought down the road it's something we want to do, and that's kind of definitely what I would be using the long langs for. And when we've had the news channel come out and want an interview, we went into a long lang. And the same, anytime a family comes over that's like friends and they're like, we want to go in the bees, I take them into one of those, because it's like, pull up the front, there's some eggs, pull up the back, there's what honey looks like, and it's like minimal disturbance.
Right. Yeah. I love it. Okay, well, tell us a little bit more about you. Love to do removals and help get the community educated and involved in beekeeping. What are some of your other visions or plans or dreams that you guys have going on within your farm and within the honeybee world?
Yeah, thanks. So
Yeah.
again, we've been doing that a lot. Like what is our true like long-term business goal and
Yeah.
stuff. And we want to first and foremost always be able to include our family. Like my boy's into the beekeeping stuff, and just because generational legacy of passing things on, especially just good hard trade work ethic, like a lot of that's getting lost. The importance of the food system, the nature of the ebbs and flows of the season, like to when you're truly farming, there's an awareness that you have that's a little deeper. And we want to continue that on to our family, and then also to neighbors around, because a lot of times like, hey, we'll sell out of honey quick, and people are like, oh, you're out already, why is that? And I was like, well, do you remember the weather we had? Like people just, you always see it on the shelf in the store, so you're just oblivious to what goes into it. And so part of our teaching is a lot of that also. But yeah, things we want to do down the road is grow our we do internships, which is like a 6-month long thing, because like people to know, like, hey, beekeeping is a big deal. If you really want into it, like we want to like do a long-term class just so they can see from beginning to end of the spring to the summer, like what all goes into it. And we'll hope to do that a little bit more to expand our ag lease lots to where we're helping people get ag exemption on their property. And my wife is going to be growing more into the Texas Native Plant Society, and learning from them in hopes that we can kind of teach more people about that and what to plant, how to plant. And she's got a florist background and everything, so she loves plants, loves the opportunity to get people into that. Yeah.
And she's a beautiful Instagram account. If you guys want to go follow Lizzie, I don't know it off the top of my head. Do you know it?
She's got just the beekeeper's wife. is
Beekeeper's wife. That's what it was. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's so beautiful. It's if you're looking for some creative inspiration, you can go check out Beekeeper's Wife and then Respite Bee Farm. What is your handle for Instagram?
I think it's just Respite Bee Farm.
I think it is too. I'm gonna make sure. So yeah, it is. Yeah, Respite Bee Farm. Perfect. I want to ask you a little bit about your mentors and your calling. Clearly, your son has it in his bones and in his blood and
Yeah.
in his, family upbringing. But do you have any beekeepers in your family? How did you get inspired? What was the calling that you heard?
Um, Believe it or not, I didn't have it in my family. My dad was a big gardener. Like he did, just him, like just he himself on the farm, but he did like CSA box sales all the time. So I helped him with his farmer's market, and I really loved that scene when I'd go and like he was like, I just like growing it, and he's, fun, outgoing when it comes to people and stuff. But like I would always run the market table with him when we do that and just have a blast because it's like local community groups and their businesses and their farms, just people together. And so I always thought that was neat. And but it wasn't until right when I graduated college and I had a buddy that we did, small groups together with, and he was a real fun friend, glass blower, and we'd blow glass together. So just all kind of eclectic things. And he was his mentor, who became my first original mentor, Ty Simpson, was
Mhm.
saying helping him do removals. And so Stephen went once said, "Hey, I've got this hive that's like in the attic of a house. I don't want to crawl around in there. You want to give it a shot?" And I'd never done anything before. I'd honestly kind of had a fear of bees because I'd been stung as a kid in the face multiple times, and I see pictures of me looking like the dude from the Goonies, of just the swollen up face. And I was like, you know what? Like, it looks so neat when people are doing it. I'm gonna give it a shot and try because if I can like calm myself down in doing that, it would probably be a really neat experience. And so I did
Right.
that one removal with him, and I was just hooked.
Yeah.
I loved the fun adrenaline of it, and the like. You got to be calm, even though your body wants you to do the opposite. Uh,
Right.
and then I did a year-long mission trip around the globe after that. And near the end, it was like really hitting on me that it's like agriculture is just such a way to connect to people, no
Mhm.
matter what your culture is, no matter like where you are, your foundation is agriculture is such a necessity, and it's such an opportunity to really work with people. Like you can't have a conversation, to me, conversations go so much better when you're like sweating side by side and in agriculture.
Yes.
And I had so many parties when rebuilding our house here that, one of my wife jokes me. She's like, for your birthday party, you asked guys to come over and like sweat and build a house. I was like, yeah, great.
Yes.
And so near the end of that mission, that year-long mission trip, I was just like beekeeping just kept coming up more and more of like, I think that's what I want to get more into. And when I got home, I moved to Hawaii for a job, and it
Mhm.
just still in my head of like find a beekeeper. And so I went to the markets, and I was living in a pretty remote little town, like very disconnected from the bigger cities. And
Mhm.
I got connected with this really old Hawaii beekeeper that's been doing it for years.
Yes.
His name was Leroy, and I would go to work, and after work, go to his place and just be his young back, moving boxes. I didn't know anything. I'd only done a few removals at that time, and so I just absorbed everything from him. And so yeah, a combination between my first guy Ty, which now is more of a mentor for me since I've moved back to Texas, and then
Mhm.
Leroy in Hawaii. It was such a fun thing. And then having a Hawaii experience of beekeeping is like nothing else. Like once I got
So
going,
cool.
it was like every 3 weeks I would pull deep supers off of them, and that went on for months. So I was this
Wow.
young inexperienced beekeeper, I had 3 hives, and I didn't realize, but I was backed up to an abandoned mac nut orchard. And so
Mhm.
once my bees drew out comb, I was having to extract, sometimes twice a month. Like if it lined the beginning of the month, end of the month, like, and it was just insane. And we were doing it in tank tops and swim shorts and no shoes. Like the bees were
Uh-uh.
so chill in Hawaii.
Wow. I
Yeah.
wonder, and no smoke or anything?
A little smoke, but they
Yeah.
like they don't have the Africanization gene over there. And they're pretty,
Yeah.
I don't think they allow any shipment of bees in there. They ship a ton out, Kona
Uh-huh.
Queen, anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, extremely calm bees. And
Uh,
And so,
How,
yeah.
oh, sorry to interrupt. Hey, so in terms of being by the macadamia nuts, did that create a flavor that is unique in the honey, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would ship. I found the perfect. Took me a few tries to get the right jug that would the lid wouldn't break off, and don't ask me how I found that out. But then I would wrap them up, and they'd fit perfectly in the biggest flat rate shipping box. And so I would, $30, and I could ship 2 gallons of honey home to my family and everything, and it weighed a decent bit. And they were always like, "What is going on here?" And but
Yeah.
it was nobody could compare the flavor. It was just amazing. And I need to like buy, I never did buy what labeled mac nut honey was to try and compare, but it was just, I still have this much of a jar in there. That was 10, man, that was 2016 to 18. And I have been like babying this last jar of my Hawaii honeys.
What a gig though. What a great experience, and to be able to learn in that environment. And
Yeah.
something you said in the beginning, which is coming back around now, it's there needs to be a joy in beekeeping. If it becomes too much of a business exchange, if it becomes too much, if you get injured and you get scared, it's not like horse riding. You don't just get back on. Like, you have to really work through some things, and if you don't have the joy part of it, the rest of it is just lost. So I think that's a really kind of romantic, poetic way to get involved in beekeeping, is to pull massive amounts of
It
good juice
was, yeah.
honey off,
It was spoiling. It was a major spoiler. And like, and then to come back to Texas and it's like, oh man, I pull once a year what I used to get like once a month for
Yeah.
5 or 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, and so it definitely gave me the hook and the love for it even more, and just the beauty, because then that's what I tell our interns or anybody that asks advice. And because I did this, I don't know. I was out there solo. I built friends and a great community, but I would wake up, make a thing of tea, and sit, this close to my hive and watch them for 30 minutes.
That's
And it
amazing.
was because they were so chill. I never was even in my head that they would attack me. I know now I go out and it's like, no, I don't want to sit next to them. But just to be
Yeah.
able, like, to watch them, I picked up on their traffic, how they smelled. You can tell if a hive is weak by the smell and by your watching them. I would get a hive beetle and squish it and put it in the doorway and count how long before a guard would grab it and fly it away. It was so neat to watch them do that. And so, yeah, like, I think so much learning happened there because so much observation happened. And
Yeah.
the biggest key I tell people now is, like, you want to learn beekeeping, just sit and observe for the longest time. Like, hands off, you can learn so much just by watching. And because if we want to get our hands in the hive so much, it's like, really cut it in half and do the other half by just watching.
Yeah. I love it. Same thing with horses and dogs. It's like the time you spend grazing, the time you spend just observing is so much more important than the time in the saddle or the time in the hives.
Yeah.
So, somebody starting out their first year of beekeeping, do you have any cool tips that you found from your mentors, or just interesting little tidbits that you could pass down to people that maybe isn't so mainstream? Uh,
Yeah, it is very hard. I would almost say, just first year beekeeping, whatnot, is don't find one resource
mhm.
and just stick to that. Like, one
Yes,
person, one resource. So
yes,
like I say for Texas people, buy Tara's book, Into the Hive. I just went blank on hers. The Two Hives Honey, the book Tara wrote. Like, just get that one. It's very simple to read, and find one mentor. Don't get
mm,
advice from anybody else, and just
yep,
because you will overwhelm yourself with the amount of tips you can get from people, and they differ all the time. It's nothing
yeah,
against, they differ. And then the amount of books that are out there on what to do differ widely. And so I think
right.
it overwhelms people. Plus, everyone looks at like Mother Earth magazine and see beekeeping stuff, and it's like a list of random things you can buy this big, and like, just buy a box, buy a hive tool, buy a smoker, and buy a suit, and just pause for a bit and do that.
Right, and learn about beekeeping in the fall so that you're ready for the spring, I think, is another
Yes,
good
that's
tip.
that's a great one. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do beekeeping. I want to do your internship. I'm like, all right, that's 8 months away is when sign up starts. And they're like, I gotta wait that long. I'm like, hey, that's great. You can spend this whole time like thinking, looking,
Learning. Yeah.
and
Same.
make sure you want to do it. Yeah, like it's on a whim. You may not like last, and you'll be sad that you spent $1,200 on a bunch of stuff that you're not going to use. So
Right, right. I love the advice to just follow one person. And really, that's the heart behind my podcast and interviewing all of you guys, is so that we have a legacy resource for beekeepers by growing zone. Because if you can learn from a beekeeper in your area, I mean, you can learn from many beekeepers, right?
yeah,
Like you can, but if you find somebody that you vibe with by listening to them talk or telling their story, and you're like, yeah, that's my guy and that's my area, that is going to serve you so much better than reading or even watching other channels that are so far away from what your bees are doing, right? So there's a lot of areas that have clubs that you can join, and but really for me, that's why I started the podcast, was to give you guys a playlist where you could go find your beekeeper in your area. So let's talk a little bit more about that. You're in the Temple area. I know you said Rogers, right?
yep, Rogers, just east of Temple, right along that East Bell County area.
County. So tell us like a little bit, when does your flow usually start? How long have you had bees there? I'll say, because maybe you didn't always live there.
Yeah, that's true because we bought our property 3 years ago, and so I've had bees here for 3 years, and I mean we have grown a lot in 3 years. It's gone from fun hobbyist thing to like getting close to sideliner status kind of thing of in the 3 years, and I can't believe how much it's changed. I'm like, man, I really wasn't even a beekeeper 3 years. Like I think of that because it's how much it's grown. But before that, I had them at my parents' house, which was only 10 miles across the railroad track, like from me. So still very similar of a space. I had them there and in our town urban lot, when we had a little town in house. So I still had them in the backyard there, hidden in the privacy fence kind of thing. So in this area, and that's what's hard too, is like every year since we've been here has been a very unique
A
year.
little different.
The
Yeah.
first year was, I would say, the most normal average, and that was a very droughty year, believe it or not. But the rain kind of came at the typical times you would say it would come, like early spring. You had your spring flowers, it dried up, and then pretty much nectar stopped, beginning or mid-June in a sense, and then it got dry. But that was my first year pulling. That was okay. Honey wise, maybe about 2 gallons a hive or so. And we just pulled from like 3 or 4, I think.
Mhm.
I had maybe 8 that first year. And then the second year, we were like, oh, this is going to be another great year. But we had, if you remember, you're way away, but yeah, that difference of distance, we had so much rain just a little bit into spring that it was like there were blooms everywhere, but it would rain and then pause for 2 days and rain again. So it's like by the time nectar would get back in the flowers and the sun would be shining, the bees would start working, it would rain again and just wash out all the nectar. So like the place looked beautiful, our areas looked great, but they were struggling to make honey. And so that was odd. We, pulled from, I would say, maybe 10 hives that year still, and got about the same that we did the year before. So like doubled the hives, but the same amount of money or honey. And then this past year was an odd year too, because it was no rain at all in the beginning of spring or through
Okay.
like winter had no rain. So when the spring blooms started coming, it was they were struggling from the beginning because the ground wasn't kind of spongy pre already. And so
Mhm.
I started the season off, and a lot of us in our Temple area bee club too were just like the flow never started. It felt like the nectar spring never started until like beginning of May and even mid-May. And I felt like here it didn't start until almost June.
Wow. Yeah.
But it
And
did.
that's this year you're talking about,
That's this
2025.
year. Yeah, that's this
Wow.
year. It seemed to be super late in starting. And I think primarily because last year we had a ton of rain early spring and then like nothing.
Yeah.
There was like no rain from like July all the way, to March, it seemed like. And And so, yeah, the nectar came very late this year, but when it did come, it was still very productive. And probably, I feel like normally when I have like kind of a dry Dorothy spell between the spring flow and the fall, I feel like it's continued. Like we never had a gap in my location here. Uh,
Yeah.
some of my ag lots and everything in different parts of Bell County, I very much noticed a difference. You know, my West Temple,
Hmm.
I moved them out there not this past June, but the one before. So about a year and a half ago. And for a year straight, I had to feed them. There was nothing from June of 24 basically to May of this past year. I had to feed them. There was just nothing. But then May came and they all put on a deep super. Everything,
Okay.
like it was all of a sudden they found nectar out there. And so that's what was crazy too, of the difference of years in that one location. I thought it was going to be a terrible spot, but they were some of my best honey makers.
And you kept them alive. I think that's something that I wish, early on I had some teachers say, if you're going to be regenerative, if you're going to be treatment free, if you're going to go this path, you don't feed your bees. And I think that was unfortunately, one of the more misleading things that I was taught, because you absolutely have to feed your bees to make it through some of the winters that we have here in Texas. I'm surprised because you're kind of in a more lush area of Texas, and I'm in a more dry area of Texas. And our spring, it kept raining, and we had the same thing where it was like, okay, the water washed the nectar out, start over. But it's just been like a continuous flow. And this is my first full season living here. I was living closer to Austin and coming back out and keeping bees more on a weekender basis. But I expanded this year, and now I live out here. And so it's just been wild to watch how you think that West Texas is just this big, dry, arid place. And we've been on a continuous flow, and it is unusual, and you don't want to get greedy with what you're expecting. But this is just another reason to go back to the beekeepers in your area that can kind of calm your nerves about when to expect it. And I think it also teaches beekeepers a lesson in how to not plan your profits around a honey flow. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit, because, feeding, let's do one thing at a time. So feeding, um, there's a lot of literature about feeding. A lot of people will say do 1-to-1 in the spring and do 2-to-1. And we're talking about sugar to water ratios in the winter. I have some friends out here that say now, actually, they're doing less than 1-to-1, so less sugar, more
Yeah.
water.
Mhm.
And so I've experimented with all three kinds. I've experimented with the essential oils. But tell us more about like why you feed. I think you should if you're feeding, you should have a reason to be
Yeah.
feeding. So
Mhm.
tell us about your philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for asking. Because yeah, I come from the background too of like hard headedness. I'm gonna do natural beekeeping. I'm not gonna, very little, like minimal, invasiveness, no meds, no treatments, nothing like that. And I still very much want to do that, but I think I'm away from the mindset that everything else is bad. And it's like, no, it's fine, and you have to intervene. We are disturbing what God's natural cycle of them does. And so if
Right.
we want to be a good steward of the animals that he's given us, we have to then intervene in some ways too. Because if we were going to be true natural beekeepers, we'd have to let them swarm, and which means you probably wouldn't get honey that year, and then it would just happen again next year. And so we properly intervene to help better one, you want to do it to better their health and not just your profit. I say, yeah, you can push bees like crazy and get a bunch of honey, but it's like seeing that, skinny, scrawny, sick cow in the field. Like, yeah, you're getting a cow out there now, but that's just sad. Like
Yeah.
these beautiful creatures were being given to like steward well. So most of the time, the ones that I feed, I try and grow my bees to get to where I don't have to feed them. But
Mhm.
being a remover, more than half of my bees on my lot or any of my lots are recently removed. And
Mhm.
a lot of the times they're like right now I'm doing removals, and it's granted there's a decent fall flow. And so I'm not having to feed, but like last year I'd remove them now and I would have to start feeding them because again, I don't transfer honey over in a removal. I am very minimal. I take 2 pieces of good comb, maybe a third if there's a lot of bees, and that's it. I don't give them back a bunch just because I found that the health of them, the survival rate goes up a lot when I don't transfer a lot of comb.
Nice.
And so I would, yeah. So for the safety of me keeping them alive, I've found brood eggs, maybe a half and half of brood and eggs, and then I feed them sugar water. And so yeah, they're basically restarting over. They went from probably a total of 3 box high, hive down to a nuke.
Yeah.
And so they need care. And so yeah, those are all the ones that I feed all through whenever until they get to where they're 2 deep high and they have a honey store, I won't stop feeding them. But I never pull from hives that I have fed anytime recently. So that way they're not putting sugar water in capped cells or anything like, but yeah, most of the time once, those that I fed that 1 year from June to June, basically, they were single deeps and I kept them alive all through winter as a single deep. And some of them got down to only like 3 frames still of bees and they made it through the winter. I did do pollen patties for them. I kind of have fun experimenting with Stan's sugar bricks. I was just wanting to try some stuff. And the pollen patty was an experiment also of, let me see if I can kind of keep them going. Even during the winter, I did the pollen. And I know some people like, you don't want to do that because you don't want to have brood a ton, but I was doing small pieces just to like help them.
Yeah.
And it obviously made a difference because they hit the spring going much healthier, ready to build. And from those single deeps that weren't even all the way full, they built up to where I had 3 deeps high, 4 deeps high on one of them. And yeah, I won't ever feed them again because I leave them a lot of honey
Yeah.
after we pull. So like I pulled the 1 deep from all of them and underneath was more than half honey, the deeps, and so I like to leave a lot of honey so that I don't have to go back and feed them more throughout the winter. So I just feed them.
Makes sense, right? Like that to me, that's the most common sense way of keeping bees and keeping honey. And another way of looking at it, guys, is like you have a garden and you can tomatoes, and it's really fun because they're all fresh. But then and you have them all winter if you need your can of tomatoes. But then the spring comes and your new batch of tomatoes come up, and that's healthier, more vital, and you want that. So you're not as apt to use your old canned tomatoes from last year. Well, that's what I'm pulling off. I'm letting them have their fresh goodies and I'm pulling off last fall's honey.
And so I tell people too, yeah, to like kind of on towards the honey part of your question is, yeah, we want to be mindful and be good because again, the honey that they're capping is winter store, so like they're keeping canning it in a sense, for later. And so yeah, if you're gonna pull it all, just think you are gonna have to be their food source and health source all through winter. And yeah, you may get an extra 2 gallons of honey or maybe 1.5 gallons, but like, is it worth the health of the beef and your time? Like that's a lot of time to go out there when if you leave a lot of extra honey, not only will they have food, they'll have thermal mass to handle weather better. It'll be all of the vital nutrients from the flowers in the area. So it's not worth the few bucks you earn in honey. Like leave them and a much more happy bee, in your lot.
So you said something that I don't think everybody's going to know. And you were talking about, I stop feeding sugar water when I'm pulling honey. So can you just teach on that and help some new people that might not understand how feeding affects your honey?
Yeah, I think just growing in lesson of seeing big beekeeping scales and whatnot, and understand like if you want to make a lot of honey, you could just feed them sugar water the whole time. And all is take the sugar water, transfer it between bees, hone it down, put it back, and basically the honey they're making is sugar water. And yeah, that's just the cheapest junk on the shelf right there. And so we want to keep a good value of a product and want people to experience what true honey tastes like. And so I don't want like even one feeding to be overstepped into the spring flow because I want our honey to be just from the nectar, just from the flowers, because it's so much better. It has such a great taste, not only for us and health benefits, but really just because each time I let someone taste honey, I'm excited because multiple people have even said, I'm not much of a honey person. I'm like, try this honey. I won't be offended if you don't like it. And that person will end up liking it because all they've had is basically sugar water.
Right. Yes.
And so yeah, so when I sense that the nectar flow is starting, I and it's my smaller hives again, like I just stop feeding, because and then you watch them, like if I stop feeding and it really seems like they're still stressing or something, maybe I was wrong, and when the nectar started I may give them another one. But if they've got in early spring, if you've fed them through the winter and they have like, you know, 1.5 frames of honey,
Mhm.
they'll be okay to go without it. And as you know, if April's coming along, there'll be stuff blooming and you can just stop, and they'll just start pulling actual honey in.
Yeah, perfect. You guys, bees need the macronutrients just like we do. They're looking for carbs, they're looking for sugars, they're looking for fats and lipids. And so when we're talking about feeding bees, that's what we're replacing for them. That's why we're talking about sugar water and then also pollen and replacing, you know, the protein and the fats and the carbs and the sugars that they need to do all of the different things. And it creates a different biology for them. So you feed differently in the winter than you would in the summer and the spring. And I think it's such a great thing to pay attention to. But I want to move a little bit to your swarms, and I want to talk about your local ecosystem a little bit before I let you go. Tell me, how do you guys manage swarms in your apiary?
Probably poorly, but we're growing in that. So I would say one big tip of advice is don't try and start a beekeeping business and family and rebuild an old farmhouse all in the same year, because that's what I did. And it was, God bless my wife, and so we went through a hard time of just, you know, I was out working on the house 12-hour days, and then, oh, I got a removal call and go do a removal and back. And so that
Yeah.
first year we were out here and we like started the business name, started doing a lot more removals than normal. I did probably 9 removals within half a mile of my property. And
Whoa.
that was all from my bees, because I was removing them, keeping them alive, but I had 8, yeah, about 8 hives that were fully grown that I pulled honey, like they were established hives. I never split them or anything, but 8 hives. I did 9 removals in half a mile radius. They all probably swarmed off. And so I didn't do any management except reactionary on that end.
Yeah, fetch
Um,
them.
Catch them and not charge any of my neighbors removal fees.
Right.
But this year I've grown in that of like, okay, because we were trying to be, you know, I was also wanting to learn better of, I was still kind of living off of my Hawaii experience of, you know, swarm management and everything like that. And so like, all right, here in Texas. And so I was mainly watching the hives, trying to establish, like seeing when they're getting, you know, overly filled. And I
Mhm.
tried kind of a mixture of a couple different methods of, I did split some. I purchased some queens primarily for the sake of showing my interns what you do with a purchased queen. I normally
Yeah,
don't, I just kind of make a walkaway split. But I did
yeah.
that. So that did help a lot. But then also in the others, I forgot the method, but it's where you cut a piece of foundation and you put it in the middle of the frame. And so it's empty on the sides.
Okay.
And you're simulating them to have to build wax.
Okay.
You, to manage a swarm, you kind of, you take some brood frames away and you can make your split, or you bring it up and then you put these partial foundations on the sides of the brood chamber. Uh,
Okay.
they have this empty gap in their brood chamber and they have to build wax. And so the saying is like, if they're stimulated to build wax, it helps prevent that urge to swarm. And because I'm getting away from all mediums or shallow frames and going to all deeps, I had a good handful of medium drawn comb. So I did that. I would, like, you know, take out a couple of frames of brood and move them up, or move them, you know, make a split and put those drawn like mediums in there. So they would have to build out the rest of it. And it
Mhm.
kept them busy to where I didn't notice. I'd had maybe 2 swarms this year, but I also have a statue hive out there that I picked up that is going to swarm every year. And
Yeah.
it's like an angel statue about this tall, and they're only in the base, which is about that big.
What? I love that.
Really fun. It's
Yeah.
like bee's guardian angel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I know
Uh,
they swarm every year. And so I don't know if the ones I caught were from them or not, but like it seemed to very much help. And with doing you know, a lot of my, I think is mainly with doing that, like kind of giving them partial drawn frames or a medium frame where they had to build out the bottom of it,
Mhm.
and kind of taking some out in the midst of doing that, it helped them not have the urge to swarm. And so I'm still experimenting. Next year,
Yeah,
a whole nother trial of how it goes, and splitting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's swarm for me.
swarming. Do you guys breed your own queens?
Someday we will. I know that's coming up soon. I've got equipment, but it's again just time is
Time, yeah.
queen rearing is right when removal season's coming up. And again, like that's kind of our bigger thing. And so I'm hoping maybe when the boy gets older, that'll be his, you know, his thing. He's got the nursery, which we kind of use our place as the nursery for all the removals. We get
Yeah.
them to health and then we move them to different locations. So I'm hoping he can take over the nursery and maybe queen rearing in a sense over time, just because he's gonna be at home being homeschooled and like, hey mom, it's 3 days later. I gotta go, you know, like move him out and do this. So yeah.
Yeah, get him his little queen calculator dial so he can figure
Yeah.
out the right date and everything.
Exactly.
Okay, well, tell us, okay, let's shift out of kind of the science part and tell us some fun stories. What's a crazy removal? What's something fun that you guys have done that went really well? Have you done some honey tasting? Is there any cool pieces of advice or legacy work that you want to share? We want to hear that.
Oh man. Yeah. The neat just like kind of legacy, like full circle in a sense, is we, you know, we're a small family business. We want to connect people to beekeeping, people to that world, the world of farming, and local other businesses around. And just it's so neat to now like, hey, they're saving bees by doing removals, trying to teach people proper ways of handling those situations instead of just spraying to kill them,
Mhm.
getting more aware of the native plants you can grow. And so like, but now it's neat to see these bees that we've rescued. Every single one of my hives, except the 6 that we bought queens from this year, are rescued removal bees. And
Mhm.
now they are currently all at a farmer's lot 10 miles away pollinating sesame. So it's like
Yes.
bees that were, you know, in someone's house, barbecue pit, boat, water meter, bathtub, let's see, old car, like all these fun random places. They're now helping put a food or an oil like that you're going to have on your table, and they're
Yeah.
necessary. And so I love that we've come full circle with them and are helping. I grew up going to the high school with these farmers, and so it's like we're getting to connect with our businesses. And so that's the hope and the joy and the legacy like we get to see coming forth, is that it really is better when you connect locally, support locally, and you have a mission of stewarding what God's given us in the best way possible.
Right, and it's always a surprise. We didn't know that we were gonna have to be like weather watchers, or I didn't know that
Oh
beekeeping
man.
was like this whole other aspect of like being really in touch with like the rain days and the sun days. And we worked in the rain yesterday. It's not always ideal. But
No, when we were making splits, because like the queens came in early, and I was like, oh gosh, like I called someone to take over my shift at the hospital, got a friend out, and we started doing it. And there was a massive storm rolling in. And I mean, we are boxes open down to the bottom brood chamber, like they're already angry, much less a
right.
huge thunderstorm rolling in. Like you got to do it though. But yeah, that was an experience.
Right, they really adjust to the barometric pressure changes and in different ways. When I was growing up, it would be like watch the cows, and if the cows are laying down, that's telling you that the rain is coming. But if the bees stop flying and they're going into their hives, that's another telltale sign, at least out here, that rain's coming, because they should be flying otherwise.
Yeah.
I love the stories too about the different locations that you've done your removals in. There's a part of my business that's a rescue apiary as well, that is just stuff that I've taken off of the hands of neighbors that needed them gone. And
Yeah.
so we still refer to them as the doghouse bees, the tin peril bees, the rodeo queens. And the rodeo
Yeah.
queens, to add to your full circle story, I took away from our Western Heritage Rodeo here in Abilene earlier this year. They had swarmed into the cab of a tractor. And I mean, the
Oh
rodeo.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that
Did you see
picture.
that? And
Yeah.
so I kept them, and they're in, I nursed them back to health and everything. They were thriving. And this year, actually this week, I'm going back to the rodeo with an observation hive, and I'm bringing the rodeo queens back to the rodeo. And so they've become this huge educational piece out here where people can come learn and understand about the bees and find the queen and have that joy and that excitement of pollination. And I love what you're doing. I really appreciate your time. I think I made it through my favorite questions. Is there anything else that you might want to share to help people uh,
Um,
along the
yeah,
journey?
this year I think too was a big one, and you were a part of it too. But like, it seemed like bee attacks were huge this year.
Yeah, they were.
I wonder partly if it was because the end of last year was so droughty and such a stressful year last year that those bees have grown up now. And like, I wonder if that kind of made them more attitude wise. But
Yeah,
this year was a lot of attacks, and everyone was so quick to say they're Africanized, they're Africanized. And it's like, they're defending their home
they're just
rightfully.
bees. Yeah.
We did a removal after one that got a ton of news channel articles about an Africanized bees in a tree, attacked and hospitalized a tree trimmer. And I
Mm.
went out there and I was just in this most of the time. I put a veil on right at the end, and we did the whole removal like that. I didn't get a single sting. And the queen,
Wow.
story of it, the queen actually ended up on my hat, and
Oh,
that's one of the pictures I sent you. And it's just like, they were so chill, and like, it was showing you like, look, they're not African. They were defending their home. Like, any animal, like most animals, are gonna defend home where they
yeah.
have a response. Bees have one that's a little shorter, like if you stomp on the lid of a water meter and they're there, they will come instantly. But like, for people to be aware of, there's just a proper way of handling it, and you don't have to fear monger them anymore. I think that's time is
Mm.
than that, but we get to enjoy and experience it. Like, my wife we had a bee in the house yesterday, which happens all too often, and she made a video and showed like, look, and they put a honey on their finger and we're feeding the bee, and like, you don't have to instantly freak out. Like, you can calmly and gently, and especially kids, man, they have an amazing way of slowly somehow picking it up and bringing it out, and they won't get stung because they're
Mm.
being gentle. And so yeah,
Yeah.
just think bringing awareness of, there's a beauty in there. There's a great, deal of respect we need to have for them, but there's such a beauty with them. And so
With the attacks, everyone I interviewed that had an attack story this year, there was a mower involved, mowing or weed eating. And I had the opportunity to ask Bill Baxter with the Texas Apiary Inspection Service about his thoughts on it as well. And he thought that, the a calm hive can go crazy overnight when they have expanded their honey stores. And so I feel like, at least for our area, that felt true to me, that it's like a beautiful April and May, and a hive that's been small has all of a sudden expanded. Maybe they had a ton of brood hatch. Maybe they were able to bring in more stores, but you can't, like, as a civilian, I guess, if you will, you can't really know that that's going on. You're not listening to a beekeeper's report. Maybe you're listening to the beekeeper's almanac now, but
yeah, that's right.
the whole idea, right, is that you want to be safe when you're mowing, and especially if you know that there's a hive there. So I left my dad with a veil, and I just said, I'm the beekeeper. I'm responsible for mowing and weed eating around my colonies. But if you're out and you happen to be mowing on one of those beautiful spring days when they have massively expanded overnight, then that's when you really need to be safe. There was a girl that I interviewed that they had met some people in Africa, and they have a large attack area as well. And they are ready. They're standing ready for those types of episodes.
Mhm.
We don't have to do that here, but you do need to have your sting kit ready, and do need to know your level of what's uh, are you like incredibly allergic, or do you just need a sting wipe, or does it not hurt anymore because it's old hat? I don't know. Um, so yeah, I think it's great to bring awareness, and then also to, like you said, just it's a part of nature, it's part of God's creation. They're doing what they need to do for their colony. At the same time, we can safely interact with them.
And like you own country property or anything like that, and you're concerned or you're on track, $20 gets you a basic veil, and like you may still
Yeah.
get stung in other parts of the body, but at least it keeps your face safe, and
Yes.
that's good. Like I would say, ones here won't harm you with a veil, like body wise. They'll always go to the face. God made them just to sense where the CO2 is at. It's crazy to think that, but yeah, you'll be safe for a veil most of the time. I was in Africa three months, and that's where I was getting to really follow some of the beekeepers around there. And it is insane the stories that they talk about with the aggression of those bees, like
Right.
just like mind-boggling to think. And that's just how they do it every time. And
Mhm.
like I'm happy with over here.
Right. Yeah. You've seen the spectrum from the Hawaiian bees to the African bees, and now we're in Texas in between. And yeah, I really appreciate your time, and I just love what you guys are doing. And we want to send people to respitebeefarm.com. Is there
Yeah.
anywhere else that you would like for them to go to shop with you, to follow you guys? I know that you've got some blogs, you've got some classes going on and services. Is there anything else that you really want to let people know about you
Yeah,
guys and family?
we've got a website up and going. We'll be kind of switching it over, I think, here in a little bit. And but we've got just now starting a Substack, which is kind of like a new, blog forum place. Got our
Mhm.
Instagram, and our Instagram and our Facebook are probably the most active things that you'll see. And we'll be in farmers markets off and on for the rest of the year, but we're trying to get in a few of the locally owned shops in the Temple, Belton, Salado area also. So if you want some of our honey, we'll be in some of those shops there. In Temple, you'll be in Butcher Baecker shop. In downtown Temple, we'll be at Miller's Deli, which is in a lot. A nice family owned, like good Miller or deli sandwich, Whole Foods kind of store, country store. And so yeah, we're growing in that way, but we'd love you to drop us a message on Instagram or on Facebook, or an email from the website if you're just wanting to learn more, wanting to be a part of the internship come next March. Yeah, we'd be happy to welcome you in and share bee stories.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know it's going to help a lot of people.
No, thank you. It was a joy to be part of it. And I'm really loving what all you're doing and seeing you out there. And it's neat to connect finally.
Yeah. Right on. Thank you.